Thank you for stopping by the Inside Deschutes County podcast. Wherever you might be and however you might be listening, we appreciate you making us a small part of your day. We hope you click those subscribe and download buttons, and be sure to catch us wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also find us on Deschutes.org/podcast.
Deschutes County is an amazing place to live.
Ease of access.
Work and play.
Great place to raise a family.
I love the weather and the high desert.
At Deschutes County, we provide excellent service.
We're here to help you.
Deschutes County is the heart of Oregon.
Everyone wants to be here.
This is episode 19 of the Inside Deschutes County podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Eric Breon. We're bringing this podcast to you from the Deschutes Services Building in beautiful downtown Bend, Oregon. Thank you to those who are listening from inside Deschutes County, and even those who are out of the area. Thank you to you as well. For those who haven't listened before, we talk about important county news, services, share some stories, have a lot of laughs. We hope you continue along for the ride. My guest today undoubtedly has been on his own ride at the county for many years. I'm sure he has a lot of stories. You see him at most county commissioner meetings. He answers a lot of questions, solves a lot of problems. He'd rather do it all behind the scenes. He's a Pittsburgh guy, a Beavers fan, a baseball historian. David Doyle, in-house legal counsel for Deschutes County, is here. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, thanks for having me.
David, how long have you been doing this thing now?
Oh, this thing for Deschutes County, 10 years. I've been their county counsel for 10 years, actually, next month. Prior to that, I was over at a county in the valley, Polk County, over just west of Salem, and I was there a little over 20 years. So I've been doing the county counsel thing since 1994. I've been an attorney since 1986.
That's a little while.
It's a long time. Yeah.
You would say you do this pretty much 24/7.
It is a 24/7 job, county counsel, absolutely. You're the county counsel is the primary lawyer for the county commissioners. You're looped in with all the executive level folks. So if something's happening, whether it's the middle of the night, Saturday afternoon, you typically get called or somehow there's some level of communication. So it's a full-time 24/7 job, yes.
Most people probably wouldn't be excited to talk to a lawyer, but I was really excited about this episode. I'm really curious because county counsel is a big, broad term. What specifically do you do for the county in terms of, is it advising, is it litigation? Kind of what things do you get into?
Well, the office does everything. We're a 100% full-scale legal department. We represent the county in every matter that it gets involved in, with the exception of if we go out for bond financing. We have to hire outside for bond counsel. That's in state statute. It's a mandate. With the exception of that, the county legal office handles everything. So you touched on litigation. That's a big piece of it. The county is self-insured, so we handle all the claims against the county. To the extent they become lawsuits, they go through my office, and we have lawyers that handle that. Land use is a big area. If folks want to do things with their property, typically they need some level of permission from the county if it's out in the county. If your neighbor doesn't like it or if you don't like what the county says you can or can't do, that typically escalates and we get involved in that. Public records requests, we're averaging about 600 a year, public records requests.
Just a few.
Yeah, and it grows every year. And what some people don't realize is with public records requests, lawyers in the office, somebody has to have eyes on every piece of paper before it goes out. We have to make sure, one, it's something that's the public's entitled and has a right to look at, but secondly, we have to make sure there isn't information in there that needs to be redacted. Somebody may have inadvertently sent us an email and included their social security number on it. Well, we need to catch that and redact it before we would provide that email as part of a public records request. So, we put our eyes on an awful lot of documents just to make sure that we don't have data go out that's not allowed to go out.
And you're just about at every county commissioner meeting, or you or somebody on your team.
Correct.
You guys tend to pop up at the most crucial moments in those meetings to answer crucial questions. Talk about your role or your team's role during those meetings and those processes.
Our first role is to make sure we're following public meetings laws. There's a whole body of law that applies to how public meetings are conducted, and we want to make sure we're compliant with that. So we'll do our very best to sort of be in the background and not inject ourselves. I've learned over the years that when the lawyers start talking in any type of a public meeting or public hearing, then a lot of other folks stop talking. They get a little chilled, a little bit reluctant to speak. And so I'm very reluctant, and the lawyers that go down there, if I'm not down there, I've asked them to be very circumspect and not jump in unless there's an absolute necessity to do that. Like I say, in 30 years of doing this county council stuff, I can tell you it shuts people down. And, stop and think about it. We're in this business, right? We're down there all the time, and we're engaging with elected officials all the time. A lot of folks, it may be the one time in their life that they've showed up at a public meeting or a public hearing and going to offer some level of comment or testimony. And when the lawyer starts talking and starts using big words and speaking very forcefully, it tends to cause a number of people to sort of back off a little bit. And like I say, I'm very cognizant of that, and I don't want that to occur unless we absolutely need to inject ourselves.
So, you're so intimidating, Dave.
Well, yeah. It's not that we're physically intimidating, but just the fact that we're attorneys. Sometimes that'll shut some people down, and I don't want to do that. I respect the fact that folks are there to have their say, and it's the way the system is supposed to work.
You know the rules.
Hopefully, the rules change from time to time, but then there's a lot of gray and interpretation in some of the rules. But we know the rules.
How do you keep up to speed on all those rules and rule changes? That's got to be a big part of your job.
Yeah, you read. You keep track of what the legislature is doing from session to session, and you're aware of various bills and how that might affect. A lot of it is just time. I mean, there's no substitute sometimes for time and experience. I mean, I know things now in 30 seconds that 30 years ago might have taken me 3 hours, but it's because I've been doing it for 30 years.
Right.
And so there's a real benefit in that context. But it's what I do. It's what I've done for the last 30 years is county council stuff in Oregon, and I need to stay on top of that as best I can.
So almost 10 years here?
Yeah, I came here in I believe it was the tail end of March of 2014. In fact, the first 2 weeks I was here, interesting little tidbit, I was still the county counsel for Polk County because the person that was going to be filling the spot after I left had yet to come on board. So for 2 weeks, we had a little agreement between the two counties where each board of commissioners had to sign off and allow me to be the county counsel for the other county at the same time.
Oh, interesting.
I like to tell folks I've been county counsel for 30 years. I'm currently the longest serving county counsel in the state of Oregon. I'm told if I last another 2-3 years, I might be the longest serving ever.
Wow.
But for 2 weeks, I was county counsel for 2 different counties at the same time.
So wait a minute.
I get a kick out of that.
You are the longest running county counsel in the state of Oregon?
Presently, yes. Yeah, I've been doing it.
Congratulations on that.
Well, it's a little sobering, though. So the meetings I used to go to, the county council get-togethers, we have two conferences, one in the winter, one in the summer, and they include a lot of continuing education, but there's a lot of socializing and whatnot. I remember 30 years ago very well when I was the brand new fresh face, and now I'm the old guy at all those same get-togethers.
Come
and
on.
let me tell you, it happens quickly. You blink and it happens. 30 years goes fast.
Well, it must be interesting for you because this is a kind of a family business for you, being a lawyer. Your son's a lawyer in Deschutes County.
Yeah, Andrew's a deputy district attorney here, and before that he was a public defender here. In fact, he came to Bend 6 months before I did. He had graduated law school, and he ultimately took a job, his first job, with the public defender's office here in town, which at the time was known as Crabtree and Ramsdorf. A lot of folks probably know Terry Ramsdorf. He was Santa in all the Christmas parades for 30 years here in town. He just recently passed last fall. But Andrew started there. I was still working over in Polk County and quite frankly had no interest in leaving. But then the fellow that was county counsel ahead of me decided to retire. And this was one of the very few counties that I was inclined and willing to leave Polk County to come work for. And so the opening was there, and it was a little awkward time in our life. We still had our youngest child at home. And so she and my wife stayed back in Corvallis for 3 years, the first 3 years I was here. And I did the back and forth over the mountain quite a bit, and so that was a little bit difficult, but it was a job that I was really interested in. I tell people all the time, I didn't come to Bend for Bend. A lot of folks come here to float the river. I don't float the river. A lot of folks come here to ski. I don't ski. A lot of folks come here and have a Subaru. I don't have a Subaru. A lot of people come here and like craft beer. I don't drink craft beer. I came here for the job and, really enjoyed the people that hired me. I was very impressed with the Board of Commissioners that hired me, one of whom is still here, Tony DeBone, and just all the various department heads and the way the county operated. It was just a good fit from the get-go.
And your wife is a former lawyer.
My wife was a deputy DA in Southern California, before we started having children, and then she's been essentially...
Is that how you met?
We met in college, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we ended up in law school. And, she was a very good lawyer. I tell people she's the only lawyer I know that's undefeated as a jury trial lawyer. She was 1-0 as a deputy district attorney, and then when Andrew was born, obviously took off to have Andrew, and then decided not to go back after that. So there are 3 lawyers in the family, and our youngest, who I mentioned was still in high school at the time when I moved over here, she's a second-year medical student, and then we have 2 other daughters, one of whom is a PGA golf professional, and the other is a financial CPA type that's working for an international company over in Spain right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. You must be very proud.
I'm very proud of my kids. Yeah, they've all done very well.
Those family dinners must be amazing.
A lot of arguments. Game night's a real challenge at our house.
Oh, game night.
Oh, yeah, game night.
What's the game of choice?
Oh, my gosh, any number of them. Uno, they love Uno. We play a lot of Uno, and we play a lot of sequence, and we play a lot of, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that we play a lot of.
Do you throw down legal arguments when there's a discussion at game nights? Come on.
Not a lot of legal arguments, but boy, there's a lot of competitive folks that want to win, and they let you know when they've won, and they let you know if you lost that you lost.
So what is your favorite kind of law? Because you must have had, when you were starting this whole thing, is it real estate? Is it the Constitution? What kind of law really kind of gets your juices flowing when it comes to, practicing? I know it's different for county counsel per se, but there had to have been kind of that framework, that foundation that you were like, man, that's what I really like.
Interestingly enough, in law school, I really enjoyed tax law, and my first job out of law school was supposed to be working for the IRS. But I'm going to date myself here. There was a bill passed in Congress right before I graduated. I'd already been offered the job, but right before I graduated, called the Graham-Rudman bill, and Graham-Rudman cut the federal government budget substantially, and my job with the IRS was a new job, and it went away. So I scrambled for a job, and I ended up becoming a prosecutor for the city of Los Angeles and then Ventura County down in Southern California. And so I became a litigator, and never had thought about being a litigator, and that's my favorite area of law. I love it. I left the DA's office after a handful of years and went into a civil firm. I tried all types of cases down in Southern California in the civil world. A big piece of what I did was defend police officers when they were sued civilly. So if someone alleged that he pushed me to the ground, he beat me up, he did this or that he shouldn't have done, and they would sue, I was the lawyer that would get hired to defend those cases. And I just loved being a litigator. It was fun being in a courtroom. I loved putting the slang is, put 12 people in a jury box and put on your case. And so I really enjoyed that. And that's probably been one of the toughest parts of being a county counsel is there's not, certainly when I was in Polk County, there wasn't a whole lot of litigation because it was a smaller county and we had insurance. And so if we did get sued, there was some outside lawyer that represented the county. That's not the case here, but this is a bigger county and we have an attorney that's dedicated to do that. So I'm essentially the backup, if you will, or one of the backups. But I'm not the primary litigator. So I don't do nearly as much litigation as I used to and as I would like to, but that's part and parcel being county counsel. You're not going to get in a courtroom a whole lot.
I imagine things have just changed dramatically over your 30 years. Is that one of the biggest parts of it, or what's the biggest change been for you over these years? I imagine moving everything to digital might have been a big change. I mean, what's kind of been the big thing for you as you step back and you look at 30 years of doing this job?
Boy, there's any number. You mentioned the digital. When I started, I had a little dictaphone, and I would dictate even a 2-paragraph letter, and that tape would go out, and then it would come back as a letter, and you'd make changes with a red ink pen, and that would go back out, and then it would finally come back, and you would sign it. Now I generate essentially every document I generate myself at the computer. Legal research, you used to have to go to a law library somewhere to do legal research, and you'd go from one volume to another, and a typical legal research project would take you the better part of a day or more in the law library. But with the electronic developments we have systems like Westlaw, where I can sit in my office and on my computer, I can do research in 30 minutes. It used to take me a day.
And I'm sure public records, just in general, right? I mean, in terms of
there's so many more
emails, and I mean all the things, right? I mean, in terms of what you get asked for and what you have to provide, that must be immense now.
Yeah, and you'd be amazed how many emails get generated in the course of a day. And when people make requests and emails are captured in that request, we have to go through and mine into those various email accounts, use some search terms and pull out what we believe are the ones that are responsive, and then we have to have eyes on every last one of those. And it's usually 2 or 3 sets of eyes. It typically starts with the paralegal in the office. Pauline's our primary public record paralegal, and she puts a ton of time in on those, and she filters them somewhat, and then they come to one of the attorneys, often myself, and I have to put eyes on all of those, and then ultimately they get provided to the party that requested them. So, yeah, the explosion of data with the development of all the electronic systems is something else. I mean, when I started, again, I'm dating myself, we didn't have email. You picked up the phone and you called somebody, or you spoke to them, or you might generate an actual letter or memo in paper form. But emails make it so much easier to communicate, but it creates an awful lot of communication.
Shout out to Pauline for doing that work. That's a lot of work.
She's a superstar.
Houston Astros fan, though.
She's a Houston Astros fan.
What in the world?
And what are you going to do? But she's from there, so I understand that. And
is she banging trash cans in the office?
Well, yeah, she gets pretty worked up. But I will tell you, being a Pittsburgh Pirate fan, it's tough because your season's usually over by about middle of May. You're all fired up at the beginning of April, and by the middle of May, you're 20 games behind.
That's right.
But my second favorite team is the Mariners, and I will say they keep me, engaged until typically the very end of the season.
Yeah, they can.
And so I've been very grateful the last handful of years. The Mariners have kept me engaged. If it was just my Pirates, I'd be in a world of hurt.
Well, I got to tell you, and to our listeners, one of the favorite parts of my day when I'm at the office is we have a long hallway, and David's very good about walking the hallway, and he says hello to just about everybody that's sitting in their office. And David, 9 times out of 10, we have a quick baseball conversation, and it's a highlight of my day. So thank you for that.
Well,
and talking about those things and kind of, hey, there's life outside work sometimes too, and you can have a friendly conversation, not bring down the work. So, so thank you for that.
Yeah,
sorry you're a Pittsburgh fan.
I am. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
How did growing up in Pittsburgh, because your dad was a steel worker, right?
My dad was a steel mill worker. Yeah, he worked in it ultimately led to his death earlier than I think he ever thought he would die. But yeah, that was a tough environment to work in. Those fellows that worked in those steel mills, they breathed in air back in the 60s and 70s that we wouldn't let animals breathe today.
I imagine you learned a lot of things from your dad doing that job. And how have you applied some of those character traits, the work ethic, the showing up every day? You are here every day. You do the 24/7 bit. Talk a little bit about how growing up in Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, has helped shape who you are today.
Yeah, well, you couldn't help but see, Dad's work ethic, and I've been coined. People have coined me from time to time the most blue collar, white collar person they've ever met, and to me that's a compliment to my dad and all the values that he instilled in me. To my dad, there was nothing more valuable you can do than work. And if the boss expected you to work 8 hours, work 8.5. And if the boss expected you to, give 100%, give 110%. I mean, that's just the world he came from, and he instilled that in myself and my brother and my sister, and I'm forever grateful for that work ethic. To him, work was not a bad thing or something to be avoided. It was just the opposite. It was something to be proud of, and I'm very grateful. I'm one of those lucky people. I come to work every day, and there are very few days I'm not looking forward to coming into work and I'm not enjoying myself while I'm at work. I mean, I'm human. I have a few bad days every so often. We all do. But I'm grateful that I get up just about every day and think, hey, I get to go to work today. I get to go, get paid to do stuff that I enjoy doing and hopefully bring some value to the organization.
Yeah, it's that change about having to do something and getting to do something.
Yes.
I think that's, I get to do this podcast.
Right.
It's not I have to, but I get to. I feel fortunate to be able to do that and to have these conversations with people. And so kind of that change and thought process, I think, is really, really important.
My dad instilled something. He made a comment to me many, many years ago. I think I was a teenager at the time, and I was griping about something, and he made the comment to the extent that you won the damn lottery. He said, you, through no means of your own, you were born in America. You don't have a tiger chasing you. You don't have to worry about whether you're going to have clean water to drink. There's going to be food on your table. You were born in America. You won the lottery, and don't ever forget that. And I think that's carried me. I mean, through a lot of tough times as well. And I just always remember him telling me that, and it resonated quite a bit with me. And I'm trying to instill that in my kids. I think they all have a very strong work ethic as well, and they, that they see that work as a positive thing, and they're grateful to have the opportunities.
Switching gears just a little bit, I know you can't talk get too far into the weeds on some of this stuff, but what are some of the biggest issues facing the county right now legally when it comes to, is it handling public records? Is it dealing with outside litigation? What is the thing that the county has to deal with most when it comes to the legal aspects of things?
Litigation's always right up there towards the top because there's a lot at stake in litigation. People are asking for a lot of money often from us, 7 figures, very routinely, and so if the case goes south, that's going to have a real impact. The county has an insurance fund, but it's not endless, it's not bottomless, and so that's important. Quite frankly, the whole issues with homelessness and housing supply, that's become a county issue. 10 years ago, housing really wasn't a county issue for the most part, with the exception of, say, maybe Multnomah County, because Multnomah County is essentially just Portland. They really don't have much that isn't urban. It really wasn't an issue. Homelessness really wasn't a county issue. Those were city issues. But I think those have very much become county issues now. And I quite frankly think, certainly here in Central Oregon, that if we're going to have some level of a solution to some of the homeless issues that we're facing, the county's going to be right there in the middle of it occurring and be a primary main player in doing that. That's a really big thing. Another big thing that since the pandemic is public health. A lot of people didn't realize it until the pandemic, and maybe they still don't, but the county commissioners are the public health authority. I mean, they shut down short-term rentals at Sun River at the beginning of the COVID-19. They had the ability to do things of that nature by virtue of the law in Oregon and them being, designated the local public health authority for Deschutes County. So those are big issues as well. I mean, during COVID, certainly the first 6-7 months, I mean, we were truly a 24/7 operation between county legal, administration, the Board of Commissioners, and the health department, and quite frankly, the sheriff's office as well. I mean, we were... it was not uncommon at all to be getting multiple phone calls 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. Because I won't say we got caught with our pants down, but I don't think any of us knew what was coming.
Sure.
I remember about a month before we declared the emergency getting called to a meeting over at the circuit court with the presiding judge, and I was there, and our public health director was there, and I forget who else might have been there. And, we were hearing about this COVID thing, and we were kind of not so sure what it all meant. And we were wondering, well, what if a person shows up at the Redmond airport, gets off a plane, and if we think he or she has COVID? How are we going to isolate that person? How are we going to quarantine the person if we need to do? How are we going to facilitate the logistics of court orders and whatnot that we might need? We were looking at it on a scale of single people, individual people. We weren't looking at on the scale of a pandemic that basically shut down most of the world for a while. Certainly shut this country down for a good month. That first month from, mid-March, March 13th was the day that we declared the emergency on the pandemic.
Is that the biggest thing that you think that you've, looking back at 30 years, is that the biggest thing that you've had to tackle? Or is
it was the thing I had the least preparation for, because none of us really, we had these emergency operation manuals, and they're 4 or 5 binders, and they're 5 inches thick each, and they get updated every so often. And I've been carrying those around in the trunk of my car for 30 years, and never thought I was really ever going to need to use it. We certainly not in the context.
Just to weigh your car down for the snow, right?
That's right. Yeah, it helps. Certainly not in the context of a pandemic.
Sure,
that just wasn't something we were really tracking. we knew it was possible, but it just wasn't something that resonated as all that reasonable. And then when it occurred, there was no playbook to go to. There was no, what do we do now? The message came out that day. It was March 13th. It was a Friday. I remember it well. My birthday's the next day, March 14th, and the message went out to essentially scatter, and everybody scattered. And people that could remote work went home and remote worked, and people that couldn't remote work basically went home and didn't work. And it was really odd. We were all, I think, thinking that no one was going to be in the buildings, and for the most part, at least for that first month, there wasn't a whole lot. I stayed out one day. I didn't do too well remote, and so I came back, and there were a handful of people, not many of us, but there were a few people here in the building, and we did our best to keep the government structure and operations running and to figure out what to do. And we just, we took it one step at a time, and that was strange. Ballot Measure 91 was another big one when we legalized marijuana. And that created all kind of land use issues that the county had to work through. Yeah. And so that was something that was really big. And so we had to, adapt to that. We had things looking back, Y2K. We didn't know what was going to happen. There were people that honestly thought the world was going to end at Y2K. There were very bright people.
About Y2K.
Yeah, there were very bright people in the IT world that would tell you privately offline, I don't know what's going to happen with all the computers when we get to 2000. So there was a lot of anxiety around that. I know most counties, and the one I was at the time, Polk County, they activated their emergency operations center, and we had all the main players sitting there waiting for the clock to strike midnight. And so that was a big one. We've had any number of tax measures. You're probably familiar with ballot measure 50 that changed the Oregon tax system pretty substantially. That came on the heels of ballot measure 47, but big substantial changes to how we do property tax and collect those dollars in Oregon. That those were sea change type of events, and certainly had our fair share of them. But that's what they pay us to do, among other things. And so you do the best you can, and I think folks, for the most part, did well in all of those to try to navigate through those as best. There's a lot of uncertainty, and you just don't know. Tell people a lot of times, if you really want an absolute, anybody can give you an opinion. But until someone in a black robe says it, it's just somebody's opinion.
There you go.
The Big Lebowski, right, man? That's just like your opinion, dude. Right? So until someone in a black robe says it, it's just someone's opinion.
Yeah.
And
talk about your team a little bit, because it's not just you. You've got a busy team. Talk about the work that they do, how they help you, how they help the county in general.
Sure. We have 4 other attorneys besides myself. They each have sort of identified practice areas. Chris Bell's been with us the longest. I think he's been with the county 16 or 17 years. He's our HR personnel employment expert. That's his primary area, and I think Chris is, if not the best, he's got to be one of the very best at that statewide. From the government side of it, he really knows his stuff. John Laherty is our primary litigator. John handles cases that go to federal court, state court. We also do what's called civil commitment hearings out of my office. So if somebody's going to be committed because of a mental disorder that precludes them from taking care of themselves or being a danger to others, we're the ones that go to court to to put on that hearing and hopefully get the court to have them committed to where they can get the kind of help they need. John's our primary one. The rest of us all help out and do those from time to time. I had one last week, as recently as last week, that I covered. So that's John's primary area. Stephanie Marshall's our land use attorney. That's sort of her main thing is land use, and land use takes up an awful lot of time. That's almost 100% what Stephanie does. Not quite, but almost. And I spend a chunk of my time in land use as well. It's a very big service area for us. And then Kim Riley's sort of our general counsel. She does... of late, I've had her spending a lot of time with the Board of Commissioners at the various board meetings and whatnot. And as the general counsel, which is kind of what I am, you have to have your kind of finger on the pulse of everything. You have to have a knowledge of everything. And that's becoming a dying breed, not only in the county council world, but in law in general, is the generalist. You're seeing more and more specialization in law. And I understand it. I get it. But I also am grateful that I'm more of a generalist, and I enjoy that. And so those are the four. We have two paralegals. We have Pauline and Gwen. I suspect a lot of the folks listening have probably dealt with one or both of them, and they've been around a long time with us as well. We have a good group right now that does a good job. And in the last, I believe it's 17 years now, and you can imagine the growth of the county, both in population and the county departments. We've expanded by 1 FTE in 17 years. So wow. I think we're pretty efficient at what we do.
All right, before I let you go, I've got to ask you this one last question. What's your most famous case?
I had a case with the other attorneys on the other side were with the law office of Johnnie Cochran.
What?
And of course, a lot of folks know Johnny from the whole O.J. Simpson thing. But what they probably don't know about Johnny was he was a very accomplished and well-regarded attorney in Southern California. And I went to college in Southern California at Loyola Marymount, which, if you know where that is, it's a stone's throw from Los Angeles International Airport. I worked at LAX. I had a couple jobs there. I was a luggage handler at one time, but I advanced to a job for the city of LA called Special Services, where basically she had the lady that ran it had a group of us college kids, and we wore a nice suit and tie, and we drove a Department of Airports van, and we would pick up all the big shots that flew in and out of LAX, take them off the plane right there on the jetway, take them down the outside stairs, put them in our van, take them field side and out to a special parking lot where they could park, and they were gone, and you and I, the rest of the normal people on that flight, we were still walking through the terminal. And as a result, those folks, and oftentimes they were elected officials, they did a lot of nice things for the city of L.A. because the city of L.A. owns L.A. International Airport. Johnnie Cochran was an airport commissioner for the city of L.A. And really? Airport commissioners were very important people at LAX. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar annual venture, LAX. And so it was they were very important people. So I got to meet Johnnie Cochran, and when he heard I was going to law school, he said, "Hey, keep in touch." He always called me kid. He said, "Kid, keep in touch." So sure enough, years later, I end up with a case, and his office is on the other side. And we're taking depositions one day in his office. He wasn't the primary lawyer on the case. And he sees me in this conference room. It was a glassed-in conference room, and he comes walking in, and he just stops the deposition midstream and says, "Hey, kid, it's you. You're back."
Nice.
And so we had a nice little visit, and as it turned out, the case ended up going to trial, and Johnny showed up for one day of the trial. He wasn't the primary lawyer, but he did show up for one day of the trial, and during one of the breaks, he said to me, "Hey, kid, is there any way you can get the city to settle? We'll come down on our demand." And this was a jail death case. This fellow had actually escaped from the Ventura County Jail. He got picked up a couple days later, and he was being held in the Oxnard Police Department little holding facility. And he hung himself while he was there, and he died. And Johnny's office got brought into the case at the 11th and a half hour because the original lawyers that had it were some state lawyers, and they really didn't know what to do with it. So they brought Johnny in, and this was before OJ and everything, but in the LA community, people knew who Johnny was. The nation didn't know yet until OJ, but we all knew who Johnny was. And they brought Johnny's firm in, and they were trying the case, and I was a lawyer defending the case for the city of Oxnard. And again, he leans over the one day and he says, "Any chance you can get this case settled for me?" And so after trial that day, I get a hold of my senior partner at the firm and tell him, and he tells me to call the city attorney, and I call the city attorney, and they both basically say, hey, it's up to you. If you think you're going to win this case, go back and try it. If not, yeah, we'll settle it for whatever the amount was. So you might guess I had a very sleepless night that night because, I want to say at that time I was 30 years old, and I had 2 kids, a third on the way, I think, by that point. And, this was a big client and a big case.
Yeah.
And the easy way out, honestly, would have been to go back and say, okay, they'll settle for that amount.
And even before, this was before OJ.
Yes, this was before OJ. But I went back the next day and said, nope, we're gonna try this thing through to the end. And fortunately for me, it turned out well. We got a defense verdict. I got a defense verdict, and so that was sort of my. Now you could say I highlighted early. I was about 30, so that was coming on 33 years ago. I don't know that I've had a case quite that impactful since, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. I will say that was quite a moment in my career. Was again,
you beat Johnnie Cochran.
I beat his office. I mean, he wasn't.
Well, we'll just say that you beat Johnnie Cochran.
He
we'll
wasn't.
just tell everybody.
He wasn't the primary lawyer on the case, although he was involved, and he did show up the one day of trial, and he was the one that asked me to overnight to try to get it settled.
I'm shocked he got the OJ case.
He was a good. Johnny was a very, very good lawyer, and Johnny was a very, very good trial. A lot of people don't realize this, but with the whole Rodney King riots and everything, Johnnie Cochran won cases against the city of Los Angeles where he represented plaintiffs in the argument that the LAPD didn't do enough. He also represented plaintiffs against LAPD on the exact opposite, that they did too much, and he won both.
Interesting.
Yeah, and a good lawyer can take an issue and argue either side
Both
of it.
sides. Yeah.
In the military, it's not uncommon. In the JAGs, the judge advocate program in the various branches of the military, the lawyers there have to switch sides. So there'll be a prosecutor, and then a year later, they'll be the defense lawyer. And the idea is, if you're really a good lawyer, you could argue both sides of an issue equally well. You might be more comfortable with one side versus the other, but you ought to professionally be able to argue them and put on a case equal to either side of the issue. And Johnny clearly was that attorney that could do that.
What a great story.
Yeah, and he was a tremendously nice man. We used to have a lot of philosophical discussions when I worked at LAX, and would pick him up and get him from his flight.
Did you ever run into him post OJ or anything like that?
Never did. No. The last I saw him was that case that we did. That was the last I saw him. But I wasn't all surprised, when the whole OJ case happened and Johnny was involved. I knew the prosecutors had their hands full with Johnny on the other side. He was a very good lawyer.
I said that was my last question. I have one more. How many ties are in your closet?
Over 200, and I've gotten rid of some. I got 4 kids, so for a lot of years they bought me ties for Christmas. It was an easy gift to get him a tie. So I have a lot of ties. I have 18 Christmas ties, and I have just about every major...
18 Christmas ties.
18.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to start wearing them at the beginning of December to get them all in time. And then I have ties for just about I wore one last week for Groundhog Day. I have a Groundhog Day tie.
Nice.
And coming up, I'll have my Valentine's tie and St. Patrick's tie, and you name it.
For those of you that don't know David Doyle, he wears a tie every day.
I do. I've been wearing a tie every day since 1986.
And you can pretty much go a full year.
Pretty much without wearing it. Now, unfortunately, I don't. I have a few that cycle more often than others, that are just favorites for whatever reason.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, I have an awful lot of ties.
You're like an anchor man.
Yeah, I suppose I am. Yeah, good movie, by the way, too.
Yeah. How much longer are you going to do this?
Oh, I'd like to, the guy upstairs will have a say in it, but assuming my health holds, and, I'm in good health now, I in my mind, I'm working till 70. And I'm hoping that happens.
So another 20 years.
Yeah. So thank you for that compliment. Probably a little closer to another 7 years, but yeah, in my mind, I think I'd like to work full time as a assuming I can and I can still bring value, I'd like to work full-time till about 70. That's sort of my game plan. But I don't put a whole lot of stock in that because I do believe in that adage, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And I don't want to jinx myself, so those aren't my plans. That's just kind of a target very generally if I have any say in it.
Man, I'm so glad you came on this podcast. I know you would much rather stay behind the scenes and answer all the questions quietly and just do the work. But I knew you were going to have some good stories and share some really valuable information about what happens legally in the county. And I don't know if everybody knows that because it's very intricate. There's just these fine rules. And it's always changing, and then you're covering bases on a lot of different things, whether it's public records or personnel issues or things like that. You talk about the COVID and the quarantines and making sure we're abiding by the rules and doing everything right. Big job, big responsibility. Thank you for doing it.
Well, that's why I'm 35, but I look like I'm 63 because it'll beat you up from time to time. But I love doing it. I enjoy it, and I'm very grateful I have the opportunity to do it.
All right. Go Pirates.
Right on.
If you have a question about this podcast or ideas for future podcasts, you can email us at info@deschutes.org. That's info@deschutes.org. And remember to subscribe to the Inside Deschutes County podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, you name it. You can also find us at deschutes.org/podcast. You can drop us a review, drop us a rating. We'd really appreciate it. We also appreciate David Doyle being our guest on this episode. But until next time, be safe out there.